escuchado en el pueblo.
Estás asustando a mi familia.
¡Lo vi con mis propios ojos! ¡Estuve con él! Esto va a ser un infierno.
This is a film that is depraved. This is a film that is transgressive. And this is a film that is uniquely non-American. And I really think something like this would never be made in the United States. And it doesn't play by any type of American system of morality. Because if we just count the sort of no-go topics that are in this for like American audiences, you've got dead children, you've got killing of pets, the killing of pets and animals. You have the portrayal of a disabled person by a non-disabled actor that is done for a plot twist. You have a completely hopeless ending. And then on top of all of it, you have a movie that is ostensibly about possession, but has nothing to do with religion. And think about the last time you saw that. When have you ever seen a possession movie that has nothing to do with religion? And sort of all that stuff combined together really makes this feel like something that to me is plucked out of the French New Extremity genre of the 2000s. I think it would just fit in perfectly with those types of movies like High Tension and Intruders and stuff like that. There are some stumbles along the way, you know, some clunky exposition, and I think your mileage is going to vary with the completely manic main character. But overall, I had a really demented, great time with this. Welcome to Theater and Stream, a film podcast. I am Matt, and that is Chuck, and this is episode 30. With only one day left until Halloween, we've turned the spooky dial up to 11. We've got the final installment of the Halloween Scare Stream, discussing all the scary films and TV that we're watching. Then we've got tonight's main event, which is an extended review of the film that some people are calling the best horror movie of 2023. It's When Evil Lurks. We've also got the Watchlist, we've got film news, we've got the Mentionables, and I'm going to abridge my intro a bit here because we've got the rare special announcement to make. So Chuck, I'll pass it over to you to kick things off.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, if you are watching us this week, you may have noticed that things were a little different. And that was mostly due to scheduling. We kind of explained it, but it inspired us to kind of rethink where we're at, especially since you're coming up on the 2-year mark of doing this together week by week. And in the spirit of keeping things going week by week, we are going to be reducing the amount of long form conversation episodes we do. We're going to do 2 of those a month, and on the off weeks we're going to be putting out more of that bite-sized content, kind of like Matt's Killers of the Flower Moon introduction discussion. We'll get to that in a feature episode when I'm able to see it myself, and you'll just have to satisfy yourselves with what Matt was able to put out there. But expect more things like that in the coming weeks. I'll be putting out a minisode myself, probably later on this week about something to be determined. I have a few different candidates, that I've been bouncing around that I feel like I have some things to say about. But it is good to be back in the saddle. It's been a long couple weeks here, and in fact, I feel inspired to revisit a movie from earlier this year because of our first news item for today. Which is... Wait,
before we get to that, quick, I just want to speak on the change myself a second here. So I just want to remind people... I want to remind people that we do this as a hobby, and we don't make any money on this show, and we don't accept early access for things, or we don't trade positive opinions for like gifts of like free movie tickets. This is all done on our own dime. And sometimes that means, we're not always the most topical show, but I think that's not really our selling point. We see the movies when you see the movies, when the audience sees the movies. And if you want an early review of Priscilla, a a week early from some content factory YouTube channel who gets their review out as quickly as possible to try and beat everybody to the punch. There is plenty of that shit out there. So I'd like to think that people come here to get our opinions because we sit and we marinate on things, we think about them, we refine them, and we come up with good points and different angles that aren't, the constant drivel, the constant same talking points that all the other people do. And so that's kind of where I'm coming at it from. This gives us a lot more time to think about our opinions, to kind of marinate on things, and to kind of do exactly what we want to do. So yeah, the takeaway is 2 full-length episodes per month, 2 minisodes minimum, and then we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Because there's something to be said about that. There's just reactionary bullshit, and then there's people who have actually thought things out and reasoned in it, let it sit within them, reacted to the art over time versus just in the moment. I don't know. It's debatable. What's more important? How a piece of art is received over the years, the centuries, or in the immediate reaction online. Where does art really truly live and die? And Ari Aster is of the opinion that we have all deeply failed him, as cinephiles, because we didn't buy into his film Beau Is Afraid, which was originally titled Disappointment Boulevard, and here we are disappointing the man who disappointed us. Yeah, it's a very interesting interview that he gave. I think it was with Vanity Fair, maybe not Vanity Fair, but yeah. And the quotes are flashing up on the screen. But what did you think when you came across his reaction to the reaction to his film?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's, this is like the first loss he's had in his career. He's had a lot of people telling him he's a genius for a really long time now, and this is sort of his first misstep. And I think it's sort of a case of that, where it's, it's kind of like, move on, just move on, dude, and, make something better next time, basically, because I think there's like that quote that he gave that's like, there are things that I have hidden in this movie that nobody has picked up on. And it's like, well, dude, in order for us to be able to pick up on these things, there needs to be some modicum, some tidbit, some nugget, something to glom onto that tells me, what exactly point you're trying to get across, or what you're trying to tell me. But it's clear that he's putting stuff in these movies that only he knows about, that only he has up here in his head. And it's like, dude, you have to give us a nugget of something you can't just expect us to dissect your movie in a way that would be like going into your mind or something like that. I don't know. I think he's really, really pissed about people not liking one of his films. And I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, yeah, because it's a little silly. It's a little dopey, because but then again, when you have the movie of the moment in Killers of the Flower Moon being so influenced by Hereditary that Scorsese won't shut up about it, that probably does something to your ego, whether you like it or not. And then you have A24 just giving him blank checks. They're like, yes, weird giant penis in the attic. Yes, give it to us. But I don't know. This movie, it had a deep impact on me, just on a level of holy fuck, that was an experience. Mm-hmm. But I am not tricked. I don't know. I alluded that I might be coming back to revisit this movie in some shape or form. But now I just feel like, yeah, take your L, man. You gave us something that you had to, because we can go full Kubrick expert on this and pour over every interview and go interview his third grade teacher to figure out exactly where things happened for him. But by God, he is not worth it yet. The guy made 2 pretty good horror movies that we are very fond of, but this was such a wild leap, just off a cliff artistically, that it was something to behold. But he's deluded if he thinks that there's something worth revisiting in it, except for the scholars of Ari Aster, of which I am not.
Yeah, exactly.
And in the news section, we just keep on rolling, though, because I literally was in Walmart, sign of the times, and I was listening to two employees in the clearance section, and they were talking about the doom that is coming to a piece of capitalism that I hold dear to my heart, which is the $5 movie bin. They were basically aghast. They were like, what are we going to do? Like, people are going to riot if we don't have $5 movie bins. But we do have Netflix here to save the day. Or do we? These motherfuckers. I tell you what. Brick and mortar store, cool idea. But why are we raising prices again, Matt? Why are they doing this to us again?
Oh man, I have no idea, because so people are probably familiar with the news story a couple weeks ago that Netflix will raise prices when the SAG strike ends. And that is probably going to happen, but the SAG strike isn't over yet. This is a completely separate raising of prices, and this takes effect, I believe, this month. So now you can expect to pay $22.99 for the most premium Netflix subscription out there. The only plan that didn't go up in price was the new ad tier plan, which they were disappointed with their numbers that they got. So I think, more than anything, this price increase is to sort of punch up the numbers on the ad plan, because people look at that $6.99 a month and they're like, ooh, that looks a little more reasonable now that the most expensive plan is $23 a month.
Yeah, it's just too much. I know that other people are also following suit, like you've pointed out in the document. We have Apple, jumping up their prices. Peacock, I think, is also, have already done it and are actively going to be doing it again, which is why I locked in that annual, when I did. But what is the unforeseen consequence from people going, fuck this is cable 2.0, I'm not falling for this trick again, and cutting the cord? What is the possible pitfall that the users are creating for themselves for not staying loyal despite the screws being turned on them?
Well, I mean, I think that, people are going to get wise to this. And, in the past, your average person could probably get every single streaming service that they were interested in for like $30 a month. And, that was reasonable at the time, because people were paying, $60, $75 for cable. But now we're getting to that point where if you want all the same streaming services that you had, 3 years ago that were $30 a month, but they're now approaching that $60, that's where we're at. And so what I think is going to happen now is streaming services are going to look for ways to essentially either penalize people for only doing the short-term subscriptions or reward the people who are doing the long term. And so I think what that's going to come in the form of is either they're going to make the yearly price just so ridiculously discounted from doing the monthly price, or they're going to come up with some sort of rule where it's if you subscribe for a month, let's say you subscribe for the month of October, and then you cancel, you cannot resubscribe again until December. So you have to wait a minimum of one full calendar month before you can resubscribe to the same service.
Yeah.
And that's sort of their way of punishing you to be hey fucker, you need to stay subscribed or else you can't watch Netflix for a whole month, or something like that. Golly.
And like everyone's pointing out, all this nonsense is just making people make a few different choices. Like Angie and I, this is my soapbox, we are done with Netflix. We cannot afford this anymore. And maybe that's just a sign of, our issues, I guess, financially. But by God, it's just not worth it. Especially when they have such a middling series for a cast list for the Great British Baking Show. It's not even good enough to keep Angie invested. And again, that has been the linchpin for my subscription. I have been a Netflix subscriber to this streaming version ever since I took World Film at NDSU way back in the day, because that was how we were able to see Osama and Paradise Now and things like that, was by having a Netflix disc subscription. But now I'm done with it. I'd much rather just pay $60 a year and have Peacock every month of the year without anything else coming out of my bank account. And they're just gonna have to earn me back. And I guess that might be whenever Stranger Things it finally appears, or Squid Game season 2 comes out. But here's know what else they could do? Like, if you want to be invested, if you want to jump back on board after not having your account, Netflix could be like, oh, you want to watch Stranger Things now? Well, you have to pay the premium for it now. Like, what if there's like a surcharge for jumping on board during high traffic times?
Yeah.
God. Like, what if they just find other ways to fuck with us and nickel and dime us and and be like, you definitely don't want to let go of your account. You hang on to that thing. You don't know what I'm going to do to you if you try calling back to me. It's an abusive ex. That's what this is.
Well, they're already doing that a little bit with the basic plan, the Netflix basic or whatever it's called. I don't know if you knew this, but if you have that basic plan, there are certain movies that aren't available to you. Like, it's mostly the stuff from other studios. So like, when I resubscribed to Netflix last month, I noticed that one of the movies that I couldn't watch because I was on the lowest plan was The Pope's Exorcist, that shitty like Russell Crowe horror movie. I couldn't watch it because I was on the lowest tier plan, and that was like a Sony Pictures movie. And so yeah, they're definitely on that track of what you just alluded to.
Yeah, and that's one of the we thought about it. We did the triage. We're like, well, we can't do $23 a month. Can we do 16, 17? But I'm not getting 4K. Is it really worth it then? Why not just go as dirt cheap as we can? Oh, you mean we might not be able to watch Minions? That's not going to work for us. There's a reason why we have this. But yeah, not anymore. Not anymore. I have Peacock, and I'm happy about it because I got to watch the Continental. Yeah. This show, I wish, if I had the power to flick my wand and make something disappear from the lexicon of cinema, something that isn't utilized in the grammar, of editing and all that, this show is nothing but needle drops. It's people getting shot, it's dudes doing gung fu, and then it's needle drops for Roundabout and other random period appropriate prog rock songs or like R&B, soul stuff. And I had a tough time actually connecting what I was seeing to John Wick. It just didn't make sense for people to be punching each other like modern day martial artists in the era that they were in. It just seems a little doofy to have everybody involved in this is just a trained stuntman who can do, Krav Maga at the drop of a hat. But that said, it's I really liked Mel Gibson in this. He really delivered. I really liked how they did the episodes. They're all feature length, and there's not very many of them. So you really get settled in before the credits start rolling on you. It's an interesting format. I'm just not sure how much more of this I want. And in fact, I almost wish this would have just been a movie. Why did this have to be a series? I don't think it did. But if you want more John Wick-ish type stuff, if you want the origin story, it's mostly competent. But you can really tell where they blow their wad and where they're okay, we just need people to talk in a room for 4 or 5 scenes before we have another action sequence. It gets a little obvious where everything is spread very thin on the bread.
Sure. What is takes place in the past, but is there any sort of connective tissue to the movies other than the setting? Or is there is there any point where a 20-year-old Lance Reddick shows up or something like that? Yes.
Sharon is in this. He is Mel Gibson's. He's his houseboy. He's just on hand to just take care of him and do stuff. And he's gay. He has a boyfriend who plays the cello, but he's too loyal to the Continental. He can never leave. It's very sad. But then there's also, I think, the main character, I'm fairly certain is, what's his, unless I'm wrong. Ian McShane's character. Yeah.
Okay.
He's young Ian McShane. And like, this is the story about how he got the gig, that we know him to have had. And we also see the foundation for Lawrence Fishburne's whole like group of like homeless men, like his gang of homeless operatives. Like you see the building blocks of the universe. So it is interesting on that level. But Jesus Lord, please, guys, Hollywood, stop with the fucking needle drops. Like they do these period pieces just so they can flex all the tracks that they have in their like Universal Music Group library, and by God, they had a lot of it to choose from. So that's my beef with that. I will briefly move on to something that I had to watch because of November before we jump into the scare stream, which is Captain Underpants. I loved reading these books when I was, in grade school because they were just dumb fun. They read like comic books. It was just fun. And I missed this movie when it first came out. I've never watched the cartoons on Netflix, but November really liked the superhero aspect of it and liked the little boys doing fun stuff. And I got a kick out of it. It worked really, really well. And every librarian across the country died a little bit inside because they hate these books for some reason. There's always some vendetta to get Captain Underpants out of the library, and nobody cries foul about it but me right now. But these movies, the TV show, it's pretty cool. The animation's really creative, and I'm here for it.
Yeah.
But now the scare stream. Why don't you take it away? I missed 30 coins the first time around. What is this show about?
So yeah, this show is awesome. The first season was, God, it felt like it was so long ago. I think it's been like 3 years, I want to say. And this is a Spanish show from HBO Europe. And this is about a sort of worldwide conspiracy to collect all 30 of the coins that Judas Iscariot was paid to betray Christ. And if you collect them all, you essentially like become, or you like open a portal to hell essentially.
Nice.
And it's really, really cool. It's interesting that we're talking about When Evil Lurks this week, because that movie and this show share a lot of the same DNA. Like one is, from South America, and one is from Spain. But, it's very similar sensibilities, sort of like the really, really over the top acting at points, and like the just brutal, like gore effects and creature design. And I really, really enjoy this show. It essentially what happens is this cult like converges on like a small Spanish town to like that is where they've decided they're gonna open their portal to hell basically. And they take over this town, and all the townsfolk are like trying to fight against them. And this season, really interestingly enough, they somehow got Paul Giamatti to sign on board.
That really took me by surprise.
Yeah, it's so weird. I mean, I think Paul Giamatti has no problem doing trash, but I mean, this isn't trash, but Paul Giamatti doesn't give a fuck, about what he's in. As he'll be in like the most Oscar baity stuff, and then he'll be the Rhino in Amazing Spider-Man 2 for 5 minutes. And so
the man is just happy to be working. There was a time in his life where he was the random guy who gives emotional support to Julia Roberts in My Best Friend's Wedding.
That's right. Yeah, and so he'll be in anything, and that's kind of he actually hasn't popped up in the show yet in this season because there's only been one episode, but really looking forward to it. And the second season's off to a really, really great start, and the first season is amazing. I mean, I would, while you still have 2 or 3 days before Halloween, I would tell anybody to go and watch it because it's awesome.
Hell yeah, brother. All right, let's advance things forward a bit. And I did what I usually do this time of year because, it's spooky season, obviously. But I just kind of went back and watched my favorite X-Files episodes when I was feeding Luca one night and he was being difficult. So that's like Home, Jose Chung's From Outer Space, Squeeze, Bad Blood, like the really hokey one with the vampires. Yeah. But like, so they're not always. I'm sure there's ones that are like more scary, but these are the ones that I associate with the show and the vibe, and they gave me a little bit of everything. Because I don't know. There's some seasons are better than others, episode per episode. But if I was, had my druthers and I wasn't just going to be watching the lore, specific ones, the myth arc episodes. I just wanted some good standalones, and that's what those ones represented to me.
Yeah, dude, you've got some good ones in there. I always remember when I was a kid, I never watched the X-Files like all the way through. I just kind of watched episodes when they were on TV as a kid, but I was always just like thought that the lone gunman guys were like just the biggest badasses in the world. And, this was of course a time before like, superheroes and like really, really, over the top, huge action blockbusters with CG, and they were just like the biggest badasses on TV back then, back in like the 90s.
Because like seriously, like in that era when conspiracy paranoia was rampant, those those kinds of characters, and in fact, those men predicted 9/11 with their show. Did you know that?
Yeah, I've looked into that before, that sort of theory or that people talk about that's pretty wild.
It's part of the fun, you just got to put your tinfoil hat on and run with it. Otherwise you get too self-serious like our boy Mike Flanagan. So we finished watching The Fall of the House of Usher, and what are your thoughts on the back half? Did it save itself? Did it improve?
Oh no, it was even worse. Oh man, like oh gosh, this show is just so like, I was like done. I mean, I was done with the show, like fully done with it when Roderick's sister does that monologue at the very, very like tail end of the last episode where she's like, "You are to blame for us," and she, that monologue she gives where she's like, "You poor people you are to blame for us rich people and the way that we act." And like, I was just like, no, I am done with this. But I kept watching because there was literally like 20 minutes left of the entire show. But it was, I mean, that's what it was. That's what the show was. It was more like hokey, just badly written monologues, and even worse, like, I felt like the entire time Mike Flanagan was like, "Sit down in that chair, I'm gonna teach you a lesson," and like just awful. And it got even more like, besides that stuff, besides the writing, the actual show just got like hokier and hokier as it went on. And I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah, unmitigated trash. There was nothing redeemable about it as soon as it became apparent that none of the deaths were going to be that interesting or exciting. Hang on, honey. I'm not sure what she needs. Sorry, but it just didn't. Like the when they had the acid, bloodbath, and it was ghoulish and like trying to be entertaining. It worked for me to a degree, or at least I wanted it to work, because I liked the concept. But when you just boiled it down to, oh, we made some deal with some entity that's never explained, and we've always known this day was coming, we're all just gonna stand still while it happens to us. And I just didn't find that at all compelling. Like when you got down to it. I wanted all these people to die, but it didn't happen fast enough, basically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's so generic because, that sort of concept that you just mentioned, it's been done so many times before, like a person making a deal with a demon or with the devil or with, some creature from parallel dimension, which kind of seems like that's what Carla Gugino was. She was some sort of like some sort of entity that could travel beyond space and time, and she basically, like, oh god, what was another moment that I just was done with this show was when they pulled out all the pictures of her with all of like the rich people from throughout history, like, this is her with Rockefeller, and this is her with Trump, and this is her with
the cooks,
like the Sacklers, and like, oh god, it was just so hokey. And it's, Mike Flanagan really is trying to punch above his weight class, and he's not doing a good job at it, because he's like what we complain about a lot, or what I complain about a lot with like modern day comedy movies, where most of them are comedies for like the first like hour and 15 minutes, and then in the third act they're like, oh no, we gotta put up some emotional stakes, we gotta get serious. And that's sort of Mike Flanagan with his shows and wanting to become dramas, where he's like, I'm gonna front load these shows with all this horror stuff and all this imagery, and then in the last like couple episodes I'm gonna be like, oh, I need an emotional punch, I need to put all this shitty like drama in here. And just he's really trying to punch above his weight class, and he's failing miserably.
So what is his weight class? Like, what kind of things should he be making?
I mean, horror stuff. I mean, As much as I dislike Mike Flanagan's recent stuff, I do really like Dr. Sleep. Dr. Sleep is an awesome movie. I do really like Hill House. As far as his TV shows go, Hill House was awesome. And he's just getting too like, it's almost like he's trying to outgrow, or he thinks he's outgrown the genre that he's become famous for. Because even before all that stuff, he also did Gerald's Game, which was good.
That's right.
He also did back when he was doing like low budget, like PG-13 horror, he did that movie Oculus, which was surprisingly good. Yeah. And so I don't know. I just don't understand.
Shyamalanian like simplification. But no one's humbling him, because we are the only ones not liking this show. Audiences scores are high. Critic scores are absurdly high, for something as bad as this. So are we just wrong?
I don't think so. I mean, I do think that people tend to buy into his brand of mixing horror with like soap opera type drama, and it's just not something that I personally buy into. I just don't. I just think it's so overblown, and I think it's so like, it just doesn't work. And he's found a place. He's found a good middle ground between critics and popular audiences, because as we talked about the last time we talked about this show, he's becoming sort of a Ryan Murphy-esque figure, where Ryan Murphy has struck a perfect middle ground between, being able to get just enough good critical reviews on the Metacritic or Rotten Tomatoes or whatever, but then also appealing massively to general audiences. And that's sort of Flanagan's shtick now too, I think.
It bears mentioning. Would things have been improved if we didn't have Bruce Greenwood's wooden performance? If we had a true thespian in that lead role, if we had Frank Langella, would this show have been better? Would it have landed more?
I think so. At least his scenes, I think, would have. It's really odd though, because I can't picture him in those, because as old as Bruce Greenwood is, Frank Langella is like 20 years older.
Ancient, yeah.
Yeah. And I just try and picture him in like some of those scenes, like the scene where he is like undoing his wife's like lingerie, and I'm just like, oh my god, I cannot picture Frank Langella doing this. And it's but at the same time, all of those scenes between the lawyer guy and him in the old house, where they're just sitting in the recliners and drinking and talking.
Yeah.
All of those scenes would have played better with Langella, I think. All of those.
Because And it's just funny because he must have just been so in the role of being a lecherous old man that he just apparently went a step too far. Like, and I think it happened with the character playing his wife in the present. Is that who we know that for sure? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there are sort of conflicting stories out there, but the story that he tells is that during that scene that I referenced where he is like sort of undressing her, he started like kissing her stomach or something like that.
Oh.
And
he went outside what the intimacy coordinator had talked about with them. That's fascinating. Yeah. Okay. Golly, yeah, you got to be careful. You run into all kinds of problems these days. Or you could just keep it simple, like our boy Damien Rugna does with his latest film. And by simple, I mean, kill all the children as much as you can. That's how you stand out amongst the crowd, apparently.
Yeah, so I think I got the intro for this one this week. So this is When Evil Lurks, or as I'd like to title it, A Fun, Horrible Time, because this is a film that is depraved, this is a film that is transgressive, and this is a film that is uniquely non-American. And I really think something like this would never be made in the United States, and it doesn't play by any type of American system of morality. Because if we just count the sort of no-go topics that are in this for like American audiences, you've got dead children, you've got killing of pets, the killing of pets and animals. You have the portrayal of a disabled person by a non-disabled actor that is done for a plot twist. You have a completely hopeless ending. And then on top of all of it, you have a movie that is ostensibly about possession, but has nothing to do with religion. And think about the last time you saw that. When have you ever seen a possession movie that has nothing to do with religion? And sort of all that stuff combined together really, really makes this feel like something that to me is plucked out of the French New Extremity genre of the 2000s. I think it would just fit in perfectly with those types of movies like High Tension and Intruders and stuff like that. There are some stumbles along the way, some clunky exposition, and I think your mileage is going to vary with the completely manic main character. But overall, I had a really demented, great time with this. What did you think, Chuck? It's
a very inventive movie. Like you pointed out, because they're unmoored from look at the other possession movie of the moment, The Exorcist Believer, which, disclaimer, we haven't seen, but we've heard a lot about. And where that one goes wrong is getting so caught up in the who's its and the how's its of possession. Every culture's got their own version of it. And what made this cool is, for me personally, is because it was more like how possession works when you have like the chaos god Nurgle from Warhammer, when he's just this fetid, pustule, oozing thing. And what he gives you is a gift, And that's kind of what this reminded me of anyway, because you have this bloated corpse, a demonculaba. He's going to birth a demon, apparently. And he just looks... It's the coolest looking practical effect. Because, I don't know, I was just so grossed out. Every time they showed the demon host guy and oh God, it just made my skin curl off my body.
You could smell him through your TV.
Exactly. Yeah. But like you alluded to, the stumbles that I find is it's similar to what kind of happened with his other film, Terrified, where it's not that the man isn't trying, but he's obviously having to cut corners, that he deprives me of things that he makes me expect I'm going to be seeing. And spoiler alert, key among them, that it's not unforgivable. I'm just like, oh man, why didn't you have money for this? But maybe it's deliberate. The actual, spoiler alert, when the demon is born, it literally happens with the bloated guy like coming up out of a stage and going like, ah, and then falling underneath the stage, and then the demon just pops up just casually as fuck. And I thought it was going to be like more cinematic and like more drawn out. It was just so perfunctory. So it's just his sensibility, because he does that all over the movie. The real like sometimes the gut punch will like happen on screen. Someone's taking an axe to their own face, or like a child is in the jaws of a fucking pit bull getting ragdolled or some shit like that. And then other times it will just happen off screen, and you just see a little boy seeing something awful happening, and it's just shown in his face and his eyes. So that yet again, this is the people are maybe right to say this is the horror movie of the year, because no other horror movie is gonna go as fucking hard as this one does. And I don't know, would you say he's pulling punches out of practical necessity, or is it deliberate?
I think it is out of necessity. I mean, this is a Shudder original movie, so I really think, like, as far as Shudder movies go, I think their budgets typically top out at like $5 million, and so I would love to see what this guy could do with just a little more, as far as like that goes, because that would be incredible, I would think, because I mean there are multiple times in this film, within the universe of the film even, where he hints at something larger, like where you have the characters looking into the town that they were just in, and they're like, oh, all of the power has been shut down. Because everybody has basically set into motion this contingency plan, because they all know about this thing that could possibly happen. And so I was like, when that happened, I was like, I want to know what's going on in the town. Like, I want to see all shit breaking loose in the town. But instead, our characters go off into this country house of this exorcist lady, and we don't get to see any of that. And so there's definitely some punches getting pulled.
But I think with the reaction it's getting, it's likely that we could get a sequel out of this. And if he could get a franchise out of it, even better. But you could say the same thing for Terrified too. He is such a skilled writer in that way, that he does, like, he moves mountains just with an implication, just like that. And how it makes our minds want to keep digging deeper into the world he created, and he did it with nothing. You do it with the absence of the thing, or the, oh, hey, think about it, but focus on what I want to focus on, which is this man screaming at everybody and everything. Not that he didn't do a good, like, that's an emotionally exhausting performance that guy had to give. But by the end, I just wanted him to take a nap. He had a long day. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just completely manic. And that's kind of what I alluded to in the intro. I mean, he is just, I mean, it's almost as if he's not a fully formed character. He's just sort of the passenger, the unlikely, unwilling passenger in this roller coaster ride of this movie. And so, I mean, a lot of times he's just kind of screaming at people, or he's reacting badly to something, or, going after somebody. And it starts from the word go, where, that's something that I really appreciate about this. It's like, this movie starts, and then within 3 minutes, we are seeing a cut in half torso, like, on the ground, and we're in the mystery. We're just in it right away, and it doesn't waste any time. And I really appreciated, it for that. Yeah, and in keeping with that, we don't really get a lot of references to the main protagonists' like lives or their concerns. They're just trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, and it's after they figured out what's going on that we get to know more about them. And that was a very interesting approach, because most other horror movies are like, we're gonna like look at Evil Dead Rise, where you have that fucking banger of a beginning, and then you have the slow long setup to more crazy shit happening. But this movie is just like it's a machine. It's just driving you along the cheese grater that it's laid out on the road, and you're gonna have fun, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's worth going back to the actual, the violence of the movie, because that's sort of the thing that people are sort of attaching themselves to. And what do you think makes it so memorable in both, or what do you think makes his visuals memorable? Because the thing, in Terrified, the thing that people sort of attach to is that imagery of the dead kids sitting at the dining room table. And in this, it seems to be, like you said, the dog scene, or the guy who's going to birth the demon, or the mother who like is walking down the road and like digging out her son's brains and eating them. So I mean, what do you think makes it so memorable? Like, whereas with something like Saw, like Saw 10 just came out, and you really don't hear people talking about like the individual, memorable scenes of violence and something like that.
It's a little bit like this. And yet again, it's just like think of like Event Horizon. The stuff that happens in this movie feels like it's stuff that comes right out of the portal to hell from that movie. Like that, like the head, the mother eating her son's brains, the axe to the face suicide. Like how would you kill yourself? There's a gun right there, but you're just gonna do the most fucked up thing possible. The most like. It does have an edge in that way, where it's like, okay, we could just have some blood shoot out, someone gets stabbed, but oh no, we're gonna go too far. It kind of does go too far. The dog scene in particular, like, made me like stop the movie, just because full disclosure, like we had to make a tough decision with our dog because he was giving us very strong evidence that we could not trust him anymore. So, sure. Especially around kids, and the balls it took, because there's no lobby in this world greater than the pit bull lobby. The people who love their couch hippos, don't like any implication. And what I loved is his defense is built in. He's like, oh, that loving dog would have never hurt that little girl. He feeds right into the people who would criticize him for using that imagery. Because he's not like saying, oh, all these dogs are bad, any more than he's saying that all men are evil. It's because of this demonic influence, this malignant demon moving through the world. Things that are good in nature are corrupted and made awful, and that was just a very powerful way to show that and be immune from criticism at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, really, really good point. Yeah. That dog scene, because you knew it was probably coming too, because they kept, by that point in the movie, you sort of knew what was going on as far as the demon sort of jumping from, person to person or animal to animal. And so, he set it up really, really well, because you just had that girl standing there, and then you had the dog standing there, and, you knew that something was going to happen, but he sort of slow rolled it, and it took a while for it to actually happen. And yeah, it was pretty rough, and, very hard to watch. And horror doesn't really do that all that much nowadays, in my opinion, at least to somebody like me who watches a lot of these things. And, it was pretty rough. Watcher beware. If for some reason you're watching this and you haven't watched this movie, just maybe think about that for a second. Because like I said at the beginning, this doesn't, we live in a time when, there are, people are like, oh, my doggo, look in the heckin' doggerino, and people value their dogs more than they value, and their cats too, I should say, their cats and their dogs more than they do like the relatives in their life, or like the human people in their life. And so, yeah, it's like, be careful, people, because you're probably not gonna like what this movie has to offer.
But that's the strength, it puts in a place that you don't feel safe. And that's what good horror does, no matter how it's doing it to you. And yeah, this one does it without making you think about your religious baggage or anything like that. It is just solely wrapped up in what Rugna can conceive. And yeah, this dude's got a grimdark attitude and an approach to horror that I appreciate. And I just want more. Like, Shudder, give this man enough to put a movie in a theater that I could see. And then they'd have me for good. So I think you've kind of identified what we would want the sequel to be. But like, do we see a career path for this guy that doesn't involve him working for Marvel or Blumhouse someday? Is he pretty safe?
I think so. I from what I understand, he's very comfortable in this is an Argentinian movie, if people don't know, and so he's very comfortable in his country, in his home country, and I don't think he has any interest in moving here. I don't know if right on. I guess he could make a movie and then sell it to Blumhouse, I guess, after the fact. But I don't think we have no worry at all of this guy moving to LA and becoming the next James Wan or something like that.
And in support of that, what his virtues are. Another thing that is another example of it. I like this note that you put at kind of this bullet point that you put in there. So the fan reaction is a little divided, the viewer reaction, I should say, to what happens in the chaos of the ending. Why don't you go on about that a little bit? Set that up a little.
Yeah, so I was kind of just looking to see, what are people saying about this, as far as, the people that like it, the people that dislike it, and the sort of dividing line that always seems to be coming up in regards to this film is the part at the end when the main character, he goes after a fire axe that's in a office of this school, and then he gets trapped in the room by the kids that are there, and the woman that he's with, the sort of retired exorcist lady, gets killed, and that sort of sets into motion the entire end of the movie. And there are a lot of people out there that are this is stupid, why would he ever do that? He knew that the axe probably wasn't there and that it was just the demons sort of influencing the children. And then there are other people that are basically you don't understand because the demon is influencing him, him himself. And so he knew that the axe probably wasn't there, but there was nothing, there was nothing he could do to control himself. He had to go look. And so, I don't know, where do you fall on that argument?
I'm on the back end of it, where he's manipulated, and I think that's kind of the larger point when you look at the endings to Rugna's films, especially this one. The whole point, that he has is that there's no clean or easy way. You can come up with your Scooby-Doo plan to take on something supernatural like this. But I just love the fact that he's it doesn't work. Like every good plan, humans fuck it up. And that is what is core to the whole hell humanity conflict. It goes back to Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden and all that shit. They know they're not supposed to eat the apple, but they do it anyway. They're still manipulated. If so, here I go putting my religion into it, but I think it kind of works because there's always some goofy thing, even within the Exorcist movies, where you just have to say the right magic words and everything is fine, and it's nice sometimes to have things not be fine at the end. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I guess, final words. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to mention, but yeah, really looking forward to what this guy does next. And I've been as people I can sort of attest to from the history of this podcast, I've really been a fan of this guy since Terrified. And
yeah, whatever he does next, I'm fully on board with. I really don't think this is quite as successful as that movie, as Terrified, but I do think it is more interesting than that movie. I think there's more going on. There's more to interpret. And so I guess in that respect, it is a little bit more admirable. And then as far as like the sort of assertion that this is the best horror movie of the year, I would say I think Talk to Me has a slight edge for me still. What about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same boat. I even like Holy Spider kind of like qualifies, even though it's more true crime, I guess. But when you talk about being trapped in an awful moment and the tension is there because you know what's going to happen, that movie still has a lot of power for me. And now that I reflect on it, but yeah, this one, yeah, it's definitely up there. It's worthy of consideration. It's getting a lot of attention, a lot of discourse, and hopefully that leads to bigger and better things for our man here. I have a production flub. I'll fix that. Boom. But it's time for the mentionable. Why don't you take it away?
Yeah, so my mentionable this week is a new comic book. This is Batman Superman World's Finest, issue number 20. And this is the Mark Waid and Dan Mora comic that has actually been going now for, gosh, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years at this point. But we're just now getting to a point where Mark Waid is returning to, for the first time since the original comic came out, he is returning to the world of Kingdom Come, the universe of Kingdom Come, which if you ask any comic book fan, it undoubtedly is on almost anyone's like top 10 comics of all time, especially like superhero comics. And he is returning to that universe. And the only one issue has come out so far in this story arc. And yeah, it's pretty fantastic. I didn't realize how like much I wanted somebody to return to that universe of that comic until I was reading the issue, and I was like, oh man, this is great. This is awesome. And yeah, really, really enjoyed it. It's one of the best superhero comics of this year, in my opinion. And so yeah, if you are inclined to go check something like that out, go check it out.
Is it at all like diminished by Alex Ross not being involved? Like, is it weird seeing that world without his character designs and his distinct like oil painting that he does?
I don't think so. I mean, Alex Ross is really hard to match as far as if you're going for like that realistic look. Alex Ross is really hard to match, but Dan Mora is, I think, a pretty good substitute. He's been working with DC for the past couple years, and I really enjoy Dan Mora's like his art it's really clean. It has like a slight anime influence to it, but it's not like he doesn't go overboard with it. And yeah, just really clean lines, really, really bright colors, and I don't think it necessarily hurts it. It would have been awesome if they could have gotten Alex Ross, but Alex Ross is never going to do interiors on a comic book ever again. And so
he's just kind of in retirement, I guess.
He just does covers. I mean, I think he really only works exclusively with Marvel these days. He does covers for them. And so like, I know that he's been doing a lot of covers for Al Ewing's books, like Immortal Hulk and Immortal Thor and stuff like that. And so, but yeah, Alex Ross is never going to do interiors from a comic book ever again.
That's too bad. He's the master. He's the man.
Yeah.
He did the comic art in Unbreakable, now that I recall. And like that was like a big focal point in like some pre-roll on a VHS tape that's burned into my mind. This week, if you think you still got time, you can hop on the Amazon Prime Gaming and get the BFG edition of Doom 3 for free. And after finagling the heroic launcher, I was able to get it onto my Steam Deck, and it runs like butter. You can play Doom 1 and Doom 2 and Doom 3 all in one release, seamlessly hop between them. I never got to play Doom 3, back in the day. I didn't, have a 360, until later. And I never had a PC that could have played this thing at the time. It's quaint. Like what this thing runs on the Steam Deck without power for 6 hours. 6 hours. There are modern games like Toon-bit pixel style games indie games that don't run that well. So id Software, thank you for optimizing your games that they work so well throughout the ages, because goddamn it, some people do not give a shit. Starfield, I'm looking at you assholes. God damn it.
Did they ever, I gotta ask you, because I haven't played Doom 3, I don't think, since it originally came out, and did they ever, did it ever put in, a official mod where you don't have to take out the flashlight separate from the gun?
Yes, they fixed that.
Okay.
Now,
awesome.
now you can hold the left trigger and have your flashlight on and shoot at the same time.
Okay, good. Yeah, that was always, it made the game scarier, definitely, back then, but it was really, really cumbersome.
I can imagine. And I think that was one of the things that scared me off from it, for a long time, was just hearing how hard it was, how unforgiving it was. But it really is an excellent survival horror game, even now, but then again, when you play those first two, you're reminded why Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal are even better. Because they tried to make a different kind of game with Doom 3, to their credit. But different company now. I could nerd out on id for a really long time. But what people should do, well, with Halloween, because this is going to come out Monday night, Halloween will be on Tuesday. So if you haven't had a chance to watch something truly, truly horrific, give When Evil Lurks a try. This coming week, I guess next week, we won't have a regular episode. We'll have a minisode, coming out on next week, Monday. And after that, we'll have a feature review of The Killer, I believe is our intentions. Yes. And following that will be, of course, another, a week of minisode or minisodes, depending. And we're going to close out the month with another feature review, hopefully in the theaters. Where we hopefully Napoleon. Hopefully Napoleon. But we will be playing that by ear. Thank you all for watching, and thank you, Matt, once again for joining me in our little endeavor here. Take care, everybody.
Yep. See ya.